Welcome to the P.A.S. Report Weekly Roundup Podcast. The P.A.S. Report provides an honest analysis on the critical issues that matter to you without the biased media filters. Here's your host, Professor Nicholas Giordano.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the P.A.S. Report Podcast. Here's your host, Nick Giordano, and I hope you're having a great week out there. Glad you could join me. Now, if you're not a subscriber to this podcast, make sure you subscribe and follow it so you never miss an episode. Also, visit the PAS Report website, pasreport.com, and share this episode with others. You have to inform them about the issues impacting our great nation, because today I'm going to dive into a really important topic that strikes at the very core of our nation's identity. When you listen to this podcast, you understand the intent behind the system. You understand what the founding fathers were doing. And I think that the battle between faith and government is something that we need to talk about today. For centuries, Americans have cherished the idea that our liberties are God-given. They're not granted by government. However, in recent years, we've seen this war rage within our society, and it started several decades ago. But now you have this foundational belief that our rights are inherent. They are God-given rights. It is now coming under direct assault from those who want to replace faith with the all-encompassing authority of the state. That's the intent behind it. Now, I have a diverse audience. I have people with various religious beliefs, hardcore Christians. I have Jews, Muslims, atheists, all listening to this program. And this is a really important episode, regardless of whatever belief system you have is. Faith is an important component to our way of life. And it doesn't matter if you are someone that is devout in your faith or not. We have to recognize faith is important because it's nourishment for the soul. And no matter what your individual beliefs are, even if you're an atheist, when you remove faith from a society, it begins to create a void. And the thing that fills that void is government. Now, in previous episodes, I've warned about how faith has come under attack. There is an open hostility towards the idea of religion, and there's a reason why they have this hostility. It's about power. That's what it comes down to. That's what most things always come down to. See, these people want you to believe that it is the government that grants us our liberties, but our rights exist because we're human beings. It's not because of government. We have the freedom to exercise our beliefs. Governments can be tools of justice or injustice, and governments can prevent us from exercising our liberties. But our liberties don't just magically disappear. They still exist, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. I mean, look throughout the coronavirus, right? The government curtailed our freedoms to exercise our liberty. And when we look at it, we have to understand there's a difference between liberty and freedom. Liberty is exercising your free will according to the dictates of right reason and natural law. Freedom is the ability to exercise those liberties. Now, you would think that in 2024, we would have ingrained the student body with that belief system, that every single American would know that it's not government that grants us our rights. However, I want you to take a listen to this sound clip. This was a political pundit on MSNBC. Take a listen to what she has to say.
One thing that unites all of them, because there's many different groups orbiting Trump, but the thing that unites them as Christian nationalists, not Christians, by the way, because Christian nationalists is very different, is that they believe that our rights as Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress. They don't come from the Supreme Court. They come from God.
Now, this has nothing to do with Trump. I know they want to invoke Trump in every little thing that they say and do, but this has nothing to do with Trump. And notice how she tries to separate out Christian nationalism from Christian. She says, not Christians, Christian nationalists believe that our liberties are derived from our Creator. Understand, that is very subtle what she did, but it is so important, because what she's trying to do is trying to make anyone that says that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, she's trying to label them as a Christian nationalist. And that clip highlights the growing hostility we see towards Christianity, towards the belief in God-given rights. But it isn't just about Christianity. It's about the broader assault we're witnessing in our society. It's a systematic effort that exists to replace faith and religion with government authority. That's what it comes down to. But as faith wanes, so too does our understanding of the principles that underpin our liberties. And that's the real target here. It isn't necessarily about faith and religion. It is the freedoms we enjoy that they despise so much. They don't like dissent. They don't like anyone who challenges their points of view. It's why they outwardly mock anyone who doesn't think like them. Take a listen to this clip of Don Lemon and company when they talk about people who don't bow to the altar of government, who don't bow to the altar of their narratives.
And obviously it's false. And look, he also knows deep in his heart that Donald Trump couldn't find Ukraine on a map if you had the letter U and a picture of an actual physical crane next to it. He knows that this is, an administration defined by ignorance of the world. And so that's partly him playing to their base and playing to their audience, the credulous boomer Rube demo that backs Donald Trump, that wants to think that Donald Trump's a smart one, and y'all elitists are dumb.
You elitists with your geography and your maps and your spelling, even though
your math and your reading.
Yeah, you're reading, your geography, knowing other countries, sipping your latte.
All those lines on the map.
Only them elitists know where Ukraine is. Sorry, I apologize. But by the way,
oh my God!
But you know what? But it was Rick's fault. I blame Rick. But in all honesty,
blame
you know what
Rick.
NPR should do?
Why not? Sorry, hold on. Wait.
Can I tell
give
you
me a second. Hold on. Sorry. That was good. Sorry, Rick. That was a good one. I needed that. Okay, so listen. Let's get back to business here.
Now, that clip captures the condescension and arrogance these elitists who seek to impose their worldview on us, how they really view us. To them, anyone who dares to question their authority or challenge their orthodoxy is worthy of ridicule and scorn. But let's take a step back. Let's consider the intent of the Founding Fathers. From the very beginning, they understood that our liberties not granted by government but are inherent in our humanity. They recognized that there is a higher authority than the state, one that transcends the whims of politicians and bureaucrats, the pencil pushers down in Washington, D.C., or behind the news desks. Our Founding Fathers, they drew their inspiration from Judeo-Christian philosophies. You may not like that, but they were heavily influenced by Greco-Roman and Judeo-Christian philosophies, and they emphasize the dignity and worth of every individual. Now, while they may not have always lived up to that, nor have anyone, if you really think about it, they believe that our rights come from the Creator and cannot be taken away by any earthly power. That's why they enshrine the principles of religious freedom and individual liberty in our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. They wanted to ensure that Americans, they have a right to worship according to their conscience. They have a right to live their lives free from government interference. But today, now we find ourselves at a crossroads. Now the government wants to control what you could say, what you could hear, what you could see, what you could think. They want to control your opinions. They want to control how, when, where, and how you're going to exercise your faith. And as faith and religion are increasingly marginalized and mocked in our society, we are witnessing a surge in mental health crises. We're witnessing a growing sense of nihilism within our society. As the pews are growing more desolate, the moral compass that once guided our nation, it's starting to falter. We see it each and every day. This isn't just about preserving tradition or upholding religious values. It's about safeguarding the very foundation of our republic. History has shown us time and time again that when faith is replaced with an all-powerful state, tyranny and oppression are guaranteed to follow. Just look at the targeting of religion in any communist regime. It's one of the first things they target. It's the first casualty. It's always religion. Why? Because if God exists, the state is not the ultimate authority. By eliminating religion, by eliminating God, they consolidate power. They replace God with the all-powerful state that dictates every aspect of your life. And as Americans, we have to resist this encroachment on our faith. We have to stand firm in defense of our God-given rights. We cannot allow the elitists and the ideologues to dictate the terms of our beliefs, to undermine the principles that have made America the greatest nation on earth. Now, following a quick break, I will explain the implications of this battle, because it is a battle for the future of this country. So everyone, hang tight. I'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. So in the previous segment, I explored the growing assault on faith and religion in America, and we see the media and leftist echo chambers increasingly using terms like Christian nationalists to denigrate Christians, to erode their influence within society. We're seeing government bureaucrats say that Christian nationalism is the biggest threat to the republic. But why does this subtle change in language matter? What's dangerous about this. What are the implications going forward? And I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to answer you. The term Christian nationalist is not just a descriptor. It's a weapon. And it's a weapon wielded by those who seek to marginalize and vilify people of faith. Remember how they used to scream white nationalists? See, that didn't work out so well. And while they wanted to demonize white people, they realized it doesn't cast a wide enough net. It doesn't go far enough. By equating Christianity with nationalism, they imply that Christians are extremists who pose a threat to the fabric of our society. And it's an insidious narrative, because it's meant to demonize an entire group of people, but it also undermines the principles of religious freedom that our nation was founded upon. And it goes deeper than that. On December 13th, I released an episode explaining how the left and the media seek to redefine terms, meanings, and narratives. From what is free speech to what is dictatorship, their efforts, again, it's subtle. It's subtle, but it's such an effective strategy to control not only the narrative that they want, but also the parameters of acceptable debate. It's episode 464. I encourage you to check it out. Now, take the word nationalism. It didn't always used to have negative connotations. In fact, nationalism is essential to the health of any society. Nationalism is built not on the color of one's skin, not on the religion they subscribe to. Nationalism is based on the nation-state concept, and it's necessary because it links us together as a society. It sets the values within a society of what's right and wrong. It sets the traditions. It fosters a sense of loyalty to the nation. More importantly, it motivates us to make our country a better place and help each other out during difficult times. Now, nationalism in the United States is actually far more important than it is in any other country, because there is very little that actually links us together. We don't have the thousands of years of shared history. We don't have one shared culture. We don't have the shared traditions, shared ethnicities. We don't have any of that. So it's even more important in this country. Now, tribalism is the opposite of nationalism, and tribal societies don't work. Just look at Afghanistan. Yet the left has done an exceptional job of branding nationalism as some racist concept, and they're now attaching it to Christians, and they're doing it intentionally, trying to make people look like radicals. See, if you say that our rights are derived from a higher power, well, then you're a Christian nationalist. And if you don't believe that this is an attempt to discredit, brand, or marginalize an entire group of people, think again, because we do have real-world examples. Oh, this is just left-wing pundits on TV that are just bloviating. It's not for real. No, it is for real. Just look at actions by the FBI, the recent actions, where they attempted to equate Catholics with domestic violent extremists, attempt to label Catholics as potential domestic terrorists. In a leaked document, the FBI singled out Catholics who hold traditional views on things like marriage, gender, and abortion. Remember, those are political issues. Those are political issues. Yet this document said that the reason that Catholics pose such a threat to our society is because of their views on marriage, gender, and abortion. That's why Catholics are a threat to national security. This is a blatant attempt to target people of faith. And it's not only discriminatory, but it illustrates the institutional corruption within our bureaucracy. It indicates how nefarious these individuals really are. The FBI actions are part of a broader pattern of hostility that exists within our society. And more importantly, it's against anyone who doesn't toe the leftist line, right? Because again, marriage, gender, abortion, those are political issues. And if you don't toe the leftist line, well, the FBI may just single you out. The strongest law enforcement agency in the entire country may single you out. They may send undercover agents to churches and try and recruit people to serve as informants. Think about how demented that is. Think about the attempts to silence religious voices in the public squares. The efforts to impose secular values on religious institutions, force them to do things that is against their religion. We're witnessing an effort to marginalize and suppress those who dare to speak out against the leftist narrative, against the prevailing orthodoxy. And this is dangerous. It's a dangerous trend that threatens to erode the very foundation of our republic, undermines our liberties, the liberties that we hold dear, and the freedom to exercise those liberties. It has profound consequences, make no mistake. The attack on religion is not just about targeting Christians or Catholics. It's about undermining the belief in something greater than the state. That's what it comes down to. When the government seeks to dictate what we can believe and how we can worship, It's infringing upon our most fundamental right as human beings. And we witnessed this throughout the pandemic, right? Remember, it was the government that dictated when, where, and how we can exercise our faith. And how has attendance at religious institutions been since then? How has it been? Has it recovered? And the answer is no. In some churches, it may have recovered. But in the overwhelming majority of churches, a lot of people haven't returned. A lot of people have turned their backs. As Americans, we have to resist this encroachment on our faith. We have to stand firm in defense of our God-given rights. We can't allow these forces, the forces of tyranny, to dictate the terms of our beliefs. That we can't allow them to silence our views. They're saying, it's all about democracy, right? That if Biden doesn't win, that's the end of democracy. Yet, these are the same people that are telling you that it is the government that controls your rights, that it is the government that controls your liberties. And essentially, you should bow and be thankful to the government that they allow you to exercise some of those liberties. It really is insane how far we have fallen in this country. But the reason we've fallen so far is because most of us are strangers living in this country. We don't know our history. We don't understand it. We never opened a book to look at our Constitution, the Founding Fathers, the written documents that created this nation. Unfortunately, we just regurgitate things that we're told within the education system, a failed education system that doesn't teach civics. They don't teach our founding. They don't teach the important concepts of what students need to know. And that's why so many people have become nothing more than lemmings. They will just blindly and obedient do whatever the government tells them to do. Again, we witnessed that throughout the coronavirus pandemic, where the overwhelming majority of people just did what they were told. They didn't speak up. They didn't question the policies. They didn't push back at all. And what was the result? Well, we're now learning the result. The damage that was inflicted by the bureaucrats, by the little Mussolini wannabes, will be here far longer than the effects of the coronavirus. Unfortunately, the left has been succeeding, and the results are catastrophic. Catastrophic. I'll explain the implications of all this when we get back from this quick break. So hang tight. I'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Now, let's take a look at what the implications are. Let's take a look at the results. What are the results of this trend? What does it mean for American society? As the war against faith has been thrust into hyperdrive over the last couple of decades, what does it actually mean? Now, if we go back to the 1970s, about 95% of Americans identified as religious. In the early 1990s, it hovered around 85%. All right, still healthy. But beginning in 2008, we began to notice a steep drop to about 72%. And the numbers have been pushing downward ever since. Today, the number is in the low 60 percentile, even more concerning. According to a Wall Street Journal poll conducted last year, just 39% of Americans responded that faith and religion are very important to them. Now, as these numbers have been trending downward, let's look at what else has been trending downward and what it means. The erosion of faith has paralleled the breakdown of family structures and obligations, the rise in single-parent households, which has been particularly striking. It's increasing in all demographics with the exception of Asians. In blacks, the figure's at about 63%. Hispanics, it's about 42%. Whites at nearly 30%. But that has doubled over the last 2 decades. So even though it's at 30%, it's rapidly increasing. Is this coincidence or is it consequence? And the correlation becomes more evident as we observe a decline in the percentage of Americans who said raising children was very important to them. The number of Americans that said raising children was very important has dropped from 59% in 1998 to 30% today. The share of Americans who valued involvement in their community as very important fell to 27%, down from a high of 62%. And just 38% of Americans say patriotism is very important within the society. That's down from 70%. So look at those numbers. As we walk away from faith, we are less engaged than ever before. We are less engaged in our families. We're less engaged in our communities. We're less engaged in our country. We are growing more detached from society. And as society detaches, as we detach ourselves from society, what else are we witnessing? Well, we're witnessing a surge in anti-Christian sentiment. We're witnessing a surge in anti-American sentiment. We're witnessing a surge in anti-Western culture. We're witnessing a surge in anti-Semitism. The numbers directly correlate with each other. At the same time we're witnessing a surge in that, we're also witnessing a surge in depression and anxiety, particularly amongst teens and young adults. Numbers have skyrocketed. Today, 30% of Americans are experiencing some type of mental health crisis. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for children ages 10 to 14. Young adults, 18 to 25, have the highest rate of any mental health concerns, mental health issues. 33.7% of those aged 18 to 25 have experienced some type of mental health condition. Adults aged 26 to 49, 29.4% have experienced a mental health condition. Those over the age of 50, 13.9% of them have experienced a mental health condition. From 2005, those with major depression has increased 52% amongst adolescents, 63% in young adults 18 to 25. Do you think it's a coincidence that those who have walked away from religion are in the same demographic where we have seen a surge in mental health issues? There's a reason that those over the age of 50 have the lowest mental health conditions. Some will be like, oh, well, it's because they have money, they're financially stable, they don't have all these worries and everything. No, I mean, the older you get, the more your body begins to decline, the more your body begins to deteriorate. The closer you come into the end of your life, and yet they're mentally stronger than most of the young people who are in the prime of their lives. Again, it's not coincidence. It's not coincidence. Numbers don't lie. People do. Notice when faith began to plummet. For years we've pushed the idea that stuff equals fulfillment, that stuff equals success, and the more stuff we have, the happier we'll be. So as the numbers began to plummet in 2008, think about it. At the same time, we saw smartphones and apps becoming a way of life. As people grew more and more distracted, genuine human interaction diminished. And this trend is particularly pronounced among younger generations who have been raised in a world dominated by screens. Ultimately, the pursuit of material possessions hasn't translated into happiness. Instead, it has left millions of Americans who lack any sense of purpose because we've prioritized all the wrong things. And as faith has dwindled, a void has opened up, a void has emerged, and the far left has seized on the opportunity to fill it with government intervention. Give government more power and you will be happy. Take your soma. See, it's an insidious agenda seeking to replace the moral and spiritual foundation of our society with the all-encompassing authority of the state, leading us further astray from the principles that actually once defined us as such a great nation. And it's clear that the assault on faith, it's not just a cultural shift, it's a seismic change that has profound implications for the future of this country. This decline, the decline in faith, coincides with a breakdown of family structures, disengagement from community involvement, weakening of the national identity, rise in mental health crisis. As human beings, we need fulfillment. We need purpose. But they want to destroy that. It's why they want to do the guaranteed universal basic income, right? Take away human worth. Take away human dignity. You become nothing more than a slave to those in power. That's the intent. I started off this episode playing a clip where the pundit explains how the government grants us our rights, not some higher power. But you need to recognize, it's so important to recognize that our liberties are not granted by government. They're inherent within our humanity. They're bestowed upon us by our Creator. As Americans, we have a duty to defend these fundamental rights, preserve timeless truths that have shaped our national identity. We can't allow the forces of tyranny dictate the terms of our beliefs. We can't allow them to silence our voices. We need to reclaim our heritage, reaffirm our commitment to faith, family, and freedom, standing firm in defense of these values. Only then are we going to be able to begin to fix this nation. Now, I hope you found the content of this episode informative. Share this episode with your family and friends and on social media. Also, if you found it informative, take 30 seconds, leave the P.A.S. report a 5-star rating, write a quick review about the P.A.S. report on any podcast platform that allows it. I want to thank you for joining me, and I'll be back on Monday with another great episode of the P.A.S. Report podcast.
Thank you for listening to the P.A.S. Report Weekly Roundup Podcast.
Have a good one. Bye.
Be sure to rate, share, and subscribe to the podcast so you'll never miss an episode. Also, visit PASreport.com and follow us on Twitter at PAS Report.